trying to stand out. We compete very well. We're a top 10 to 12 national brand.
If you would have stopped at that $50,000 mark and you would have said, hey, I'm done with this, I don't want any more.
Ignorance was bliss in our...
Rather than feeling like I have to walk in, give my boss the bird, tell him to take a hike.
I think we should do this. My friends all love it. It has all these benefits. We've got a name for it. We could call it Mom Water.
No idea what you're actually going to do.
We're past the point of no return. Like, let's go with this thing.
You gain the proof of concept of all the things that you learned leading up to it.
We were out of stock so much that first year.
Go start something brand new with no proof of concept.
It's like lightning in a bottle.
All right, welcome back to the Risky Business Podcast. I am excited to welcome our guest, Mr. Bryce Morrison here, who is the co-founder of Mom Water and now Dad Water. So thank you for sitting down. A Kentuckiana-based company. I guess it's Indiana-based company, but a Louisville area-based company. So thanks so much for sitting down with me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, of course. I have a friend that works for you, Sloan, who was very kind, who connected us. So she was very kind to get us connected, and thanks for sitting down. I've heard about you guys. I've actually never had a Mom Water or a Dad Water, so we should have brought one today and sat it down here, and I could have had my first taste test on it.
I'm not always prepared. Sometimes I'm like,
you don't have them in the truck.
Half the time we do, but my truck is hooked up to a trailer right now. Jill needed the van, so. Yeah, I had to drive a personal vehicle today, so no samples in the vehicle.
It's okay.
Totally
well, I'll support it in a store somewhere.
Appreciate it. We'll get you some.
There you go. Okay, well, tell me about Mom Water and Dad Water. Tell me about it. Introduce yourself, and for those who might be listening who haven't heard of it or haven't tried it yet.
Sure. Yeah. So Mom Water is we're coining the term of spirit water. Dad Water the same way. So Mom Water is actually a vodka infused fruit water. So if you like your infused water that you would find at a hotel or a fancy spa. A lot of people say spa water. That is in essence Mom Water if you put just enough vodka in it to not taste the vodka, right? So you're drinking water. You're drinking a fruit-infused water. Dad Water is the same thing, except we use tequila. And the ABV is a little higher because if you're into tequila, you want to taste the tequila a little bit. Vodka is legitimately tasteless. That's why vodka is so popular, right? You don't taste it as much when you mix it. So those are our two brands. We have a very unique story in the alcohol world. And it started in 2018 where Jill and I were at a resort in the Dominican Republic. And like everyone else there, you get these nice big sugary drinks on day one and you're excited to be there. You get caught up in the moment. And next thing you know, the next morning is a little rough. And so, she wakes up and there was these big stations of these jugs of water around the resort and there was fruit floating in it. Looked really good. Jill started drinking this water, loved it. Turns out it was passion fruit water. And so she was hydrating every day with this water. And it got to the point to where she just kept talking about how much she loved this water. So she would take her Yeti up to the bar, fill it up with this water, take it to them and say, just put a little vodka in here. I want to keep drinking the water, but I also want to drink. And she was like, I don't know if it'll work, but that's just what I want to do. So she did. Turns out it works. And she would notice that by the end of the day, she felt better. She was drinking a lot of water throughout the day in the hot sun. There was no sugar in this water. You're getting the flavor of fruit, but it's not sugary. And Jill has a very, I would say delicate palate anyway, doesn't like bold, doesn't like spicy, doesn't like salt, doesn't like sweet. She's very, so this was perfect for her. So when we came home from that vacation around our pool, that was around 2018, which is when seltzers were just popping off. And her and her friends were trying every single one of them. It didn't matter, but they tried the Corona and this and that. And they all noticed the same thing. They're like, we kind of like drinking these, but by the end of the day, around the pool, hot sun, and you drink a few of them, you feel terrible. You're bloated up, you got a headache, all these things. So Jill kind of turned to me and she was like, how do we recreate that thing I was doing in the Dominican? I was like, I'll just go get you some flavored vodka. So I went to the store, probably bought the cheapest bottle of flavored vodka. I actually found a passion fruit one. I think it was Pinnacle or something. It's a $10 bottle of terrible vodka probably. And gave it to her. So she would take a Dasani water bottle or Fiji or something like that and open it up, take a little swig out and replace it with some of that flavored vodka. And she made a few of them and got to the point where she's like, wow, try this. You can't taste the alcohol. It just tastes like water. It's like, yeah, it does. So she started drinking these Poolside and they were in, like I said, usually Dasanis. And her friends started noticing and be like, what are you drinking in the water bottle? Because we know it's not water. They know Jill well enough to know like we're around the pool and we're going to have a few. And so she said, well, it's, here, try it. It's my kind of vodka water that I'm making. And they all loved it. And they all saw the same benefit, which was at the end of the day, they're like, I feel a lot better. They wake up the next morning and text her like, I feel better, like that's wild. So long story short, she eventually came to me and I should skip a big part here. These little water bottles would start appearing all over the house. We do have 3 kids. And at the time they were right in that, like, from probably like 7 or 8, maybe to like, or 8 or 9 to like, 14.
Yeah.
And inevitably they would maybe snag one of these and they'd think it's a Dasani and they'd take a little swig of it and like spit it out or say like, this water tastes kind of funky because it was, different, but it wasn't like super strong.
Yeah.
So I kind of looked at Jill. I'm like, you need to probably somehow designate your water, put them in a different bottle, something.
Yeah.
So she just took a permanent marker and scribbled mom on all of her water bottles that had this concoction in it. And so her friends technically coined the term Jill's mom water.
Oh,
so they'd always say, oh, that's one of Jill's mom waters. And so she came to me one day and she was like, hey, I think we should do this. I'm like, do what? She's like, make this. She's like, I can't find it anywhere. I've looked near and far, no liquor stores, online, nothing. I can't find anything. She said, my friends all love it. It has all these benefits and we've got a name for it. We could call it mom water. And I was like, those all sound phenomenal, but no way. Like, it seemed like such a pipe dream to start an alcohol company, like one of the most regulated industries that there is. And I didn't know anything about it. I assumed we'd have to build a distillery. And I'm like, we're not made of money. We're a very average family going through, like we both had good jobs, but like a lot of families, we weren't great with always investing and all that. So we didn't have money just sitting around. And so I kind of blew it off. And I think it took her 9 or 10 months of like every once in a while she'd bring it up, probably drinking one, like just telling you we should make it. I'm like, okay. And finally, I think I probably had a few too many one day. It was me and some of my buddies, and we were coming off the golf course, and we had one of the moms come pick us up. And we're driving along, and we're all sitting there, and feeling pretty good. And she just says something about one of Jill's mom water, and she says the word mom water. And for some reason that day, it hit my ears different. I'm like, I could legit see this as something sitting on the shelf like that. It just popped in my head. I'm like, man, it really does. There's something there. So I remember going home and I told Jill, I'm like, all right, like let's start looking into it and doing a little research. And so that's kind of what started everything, was from 2018 to really almost 2020, right? That's the process took close to 2 years of like, do we do this? Do we not? Me blowing it off for almost a year.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the concept of mom water started and we got into it. And weirdly enough, the very first time that the first, I would say, domino to fall in the process was we had a friend that I'd pitched the idea to, and he was like, I think it's an incredible idea. And he said, I was like, yeah, but I have no idea what to do. Like, do I go to a distillery? Do I ask them?
Who do you even call first?
Yeah, I had no idea. There's not a handbook for this. And he said, I think there's this company in Louisville, Kentucky. They're called Flavorman.
Where'd you live at the time?
So we're in Southern Indiana. So I always tell people, if you know where Holiday World is, we're at that exit. Like we're in rural Southern Indiana, very small town of Ferdinand, Indiana. Population is probably like 2,500, 3,000 people. And we're both from that area. So a lot of family and friends in that area. So we get introduced to Flavorman, and he's like, I think that's what they do. They do like beverage development and concepts. And so I'm like, cool. So I literally went onto their website, filled out a form and said, here's kind of our concept, thinking at the time, there's probably logistically a reason this hasn't been done. Like maybe it just doesn't work. Maybe you can't do it, production, whatever. And they got back with us and said, no, we can do that. Here's the price for the project. Here's what you get. And kind of looked at Jill. I'm like, I guess here we go. Like we kind of looked at each other like, okay. Didn't know anything beyond that. Like legitimately didn't know we even needed distributors to distribute the product. We didn't know this. So we started the project, and then I find out, we got to find distribution in all these states. Like we can't just sell it, and then it's like, you go through that. And if you think like we kicked this project off in January of 2020, 3 months later, during that time, we all know what happened, which was COVID. So the hardest part ended up being trying to find a production facility, because if you remember, all the smaller ones, which is what we would need, we couldn't do $1 million orders and all this, were shut down making hand sanitizer for COVID. If you remember all that. All those distilleries, right? They're laying off people and they're making hand sanitizer. They're like, we're not interested in making this vodka water thing you guys got. So it took a hot minute to figure that out, that whole process, and to find somebody that could actually make the product in the quantities that we could afford to pay them to make it. So
you might be the easiest interview of all time. I'm one question and just roll with it. This is great.
I can talk. So
this is perfect. I think the fun thing I see from your story and looking back on a risk mindset is a lot of times I think the thing that holds people back from taking a risk, whether it be starting something or changing jobs or whatever it is tied to the risk of the unknown of, I'm not prepared for this. I'm not ready for this. And to be honest, if you were a full-blown distributor already and you knew all the problems you were probably going to face, you probably wouldn't have even started it.
I've said that before. I told somebody, I said, looking back, because I'll have I've got a lunch with a local gentleman tomorrow, actually, that beverage concept, and was like, hey, I just want to run stuff by you. And I instantly am transporting myself back into my own shoes from that time. And I remember at the time we met with a large liquor chain in Indiana, and I had a local bourbon group that I had helped found like years and years ago. So that was my extent of understanding the liquor world, was all through a bourbon lens. And so we knew a VP at a good liquor store chain in Indiana. And I called him up. I was like, hey, we've got this concept. Can I meet with you? He's like, yeah, sure. So we came up there, met with him, and he's very cut and dry. And he tries the product. He's like, it's good. He looked at Jill and I, and he's like, what do you probably got at this point? Because we're still pretty early on. He's like, what do you got, like 50, 60,000, something like that, sunk into this? We're like, yeah. He's like, take it and just stop. He's like, just walk away.
Cut your losses now.
I'm like, well, we're pretty deep. I mean, we're going at this point in time. We're at least going to give it a shot. And I was like, why? Something wrong with the product? He's like, no, I think the product's great. He's like, branding's great. He's like, there's just no rhyme or reason in the alcohol world. And he actually used Screwball as an example. He's like, if you would have been in Jim Beam's boardroom, any of these whiskey companies' boardroom 15 years ago, and said, I have an idea. We're going to make a peanut butter flavored whiskey. He's like, you probably would have been fired on the spot, laughed out of the room. And here it is, selling millions of cases and has spinoffs and all this. So that was his point, was like, there's so much in it. And I remember blowing it off. We got out of that meeting and Jill was like, almost like, I don't like that guy. Like, I'm like, well, I do. He told us what we needed to hear, but he also said he'll put it in some of his stores. So now I find myself like, I'm in that shoe. I'm the guy that, like, when someone comes to me and I want to be like, you should chase your dreams for sure, but just know a little bit of what you're getting into, because there's so much complexity. It's so competitive right now in our little space. And it's so hard to stand out. It's a weird time in the alcohol world. And so times have changed. But I find myself, I end up going, listen, you got to follow your dreams, take the risk, and do all those things. Just know, like, do it smartly. If you're going to bet everything you have and you have nothing if this doesn't succeed, that might be a different scenario than we're going to try to get into it in a smart way. Because it's risky. The alcohol world right now, especially if you're doing anything in a canned beverage, is super risky. Hard to make money, hard to stand out. There's so much competition. I mean, if you look at the landscape right now, the only real subcategory of alcohol that's growing, I mean, beer's down, wine's down, spirits are down, everything, is the category of spirit-based ready-to drinks, which is anything in a can that's using actual liquor, not a malt or a wine. And so what's happening is every company is throwing millions and millions of dollars into that category. All of the innovation is in that category. If you think of like Crystal Light and Sunny D and Coke and Pepsi and Mountain Dew, like everybody is jumping into this category. All the teas.
Sunny D's
Sunny D jumped up to like
hard
a number
Sunny
4. D. Yeah, legit.
I've never heard of that. That's
and which is crazy, right? So like you as a consumer, like, didn't realize Sunny D, which is a huge brand, was even in the alcohol like in this little category. They're all doing it. And so trying to stand out, we're the small kid on the block. Like, we compete very well. We're a top 10 to 12 national brand.
That's crazy.
I know, which is nuts, but we probably have the marketing budget of like, you know, a hundredth of what they're doing. So we lean into who we are, authenticity. We're not out looking for celebrities to rep our brand, like to buy in and do all of this. We're trying to grow it as just us, our team, our people, our family, very family oriented. So yeah, it's just a weird time right now, but going back to that and all the risk, you know, I see people, I look at them, I'm like, man, like I think back, I'll have a conversation with them for an hour or so, and they'll ask me all these questions. And I start thinking back on all the things that had to happen to get us here. And I told somebody, I said all the time, like if you put a whiteboard and you put everything on there, you go all the way around the room of all the things that you have to do, I would have looked at it if I would have known that and been like, nope, I'm good. Like I don't, because the amount of things that had to go, like ignorance was bliss in our, like specifically. And I think like for the risk of that, because everybody's always like, what's that one moment where you're like, you know, the risk is just real. And you're like, are we doing it or are we not? And I think for us, it was a lot of little moments. It was a lot of little risks to where all of a sudden we're like knee deep in it going, oh, I guess we're doing this, you know, like obviously whenever we quit, you know, our full-time jobs was a big deal, but there were so many things that led up to that moment. So many little risks, like little steps. And again, the ignorance part, not really knowing what's around the other, you know, the next corner, it just kind of led us to that moment. And all of a sudden we're like, well, we're in it now, you know, we're past the point of no return. Like, let's go with this thing. So,
and I think, I mean, it's a good reminder of like, everyone's heard of the phrase, like just 1% better every day. And it's like, rather than feeling like I have to walk in, give my boss the bird, tell him to take a hike and go start something brand new with no proof of concept and no idea what you're actually going to do. You know, are you taking steps today to where I tell people it's like, pick a day 6 months from now, a year from now, and say, I'm going to wake up every single day and let's say you wanted to quit your job and start something new. It's like, decide I'm going to spend my free time that I normally would go play golf with the guys or go on that trip or do whatever it is, and say, I'm going to build something in this off time to where I have this free time to where 6 months from now, I either have a proof of concept or what did you really lose if you lost 6 months worth of time investing in it? In the end, you lost a little bit of time, you gained knowledge, you gained experience. And even if you would have stopped at that $50,000 mark and you would have said, hey, I'm done with this, I don't want any more, you gained the proof of concept of all the things that you learned leading up to it to where who knows what you would have started next.
Agreed. And I think that's, you know, sometimes maybe don't look at it as one big decision that's going to be like all or nothing. It's like, no, it's all the little decisions that you're going to make. And, you know, there's a lot of things you can do with a very calculated risk. It doesn't have to be always okay, we're putting everything on the line here. We're, you know, like we both were working. I mean, we were both working for a year and a half just in our, you know, it was just like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice my free time to figure out all of this stuff, you know, and that's what really ended up happening. It wasn't just that, and some, obviously everyone's scenario is going to be different, but for us, it was that we could work on this while we were doing other things. It was just going to cost us a lot of free time and money, obviously. But, you know, we look at it, we're like, hey, it's money. You know, we can save up, make it back. We're not putting ourselves in a really strained financial decision because, you know, the older you get, you have family, that risk becomes sometimes exponential because it's like, now it's not just me by myself or me and my wife. It's like me, my wife, and my 3 kids, you know, and all the things that come along with having a family. So, you know, we tried to make it as calculated of a risk as we could.
And I feel the exact same way I feel like, because when I jumped into real estate, it was 2020 and it was crazy. I had a new baby at the time. Now I have 2 kids. And I tell people there's a different level of when you have that pressure and you're starting something, you have a different pressure to where if I was a single guy with living in my parents' basement, the drive might not be there to be like, oh, I have to go do this. For me, I was like, I want my wife to be at home. I have to succeed at this. And that was the drive to push me to work harder than what I saw other people do. And so I feel like in the same way as you started at a point in life where it was, you had 3 kids who were all going to school and getting ready for college like your sons are in now. And it's like, you know, it's a different driver.
It really is. And that was probably like whenever we didn't quit our job until, so we had a friend, John Bell, a longtime friend. He was actually part of the bourbon club, right? That created.
What's your favorite bourbon? You're going to celebrate something. What is, it's a nice one.
I'm not going too crazy. Anything Buffalo Trace, I usually love. I love my palate and Buffalo Trace go well together. Weller Antique 107 would be my. So it's
I've never had that.
107 proof. It's Weller. It's like a young, pappy, but it's very doable. Like in terms of buying them. You used to
What color is the bottle?
Red. It's a red label.
Okay.
There's Weller 12 is a green label.
Yeah.
Then you've got, or a black label.
I've had the black and the green.
Okay, so the red one is the higher proof one, and I think it's the best of all of them. I think it's better than Weller 12, like very, very good pour.
Okay.
And you can get them affordable. They used to be able to get them for $35 all day, every day. Not anymore, but they're still not too bad. So, but we had started this group, and John and his wife, Bobby, technically his wife, Bobby Jo, might even be her birthday today. So happy birthday, Bobby. She joined the group first, and then John kind of joined. So we became friends with them, knew them for years. So when we started doing this, went to John, it was just like, hey, as friends, like, check this out. This is kind of this concept we got. They tried some of the new samples, and he was like, I love it. I love the concept. He's like, and he had another company that he was an owner in, and they just kind of not really retired, but got out of the day-to-day, right? Like hired their replacements. They're on the board, and they just bought a house in Arizona, and he was like, listen, I think you should take this thing to the stars. He's like, I don't think you slow roll it, because by this point, we sold our first case in March of 21. And I'll remember this day, we just got a bank. We put a second mortgage on our house, and that's what we're using to fund, ordering materials and these production runs. And when the bank, they said, hey, we need a projection from you, like 2 years. I'm like, I don't know if we'll ever sell a case. I really don't. Like, how do you do that? So at the time, we were with a distributor in Indiana, and they also had High Noon. And I was like, hey, can you give me some kind of number of what they're selling? Because I know they're the category leader. And because the bank wanted a normal projection and an aggressive if things went well. And I was like, okay. So we put all this numbers together. And I'll remember, I put that if I'm doing 10,000 cases, if I'm able to sell 10,000 cases in a month by the end of year 2, like that would be wild, because that's, I think, about what High Noon maybe at the time was getting close to doing. So I put that all on there. It might, somewhere between like 5,000 and 10,000 cases. And 3 months in, we were in like July, and we couldn't keep up. Like it was every time. It was Indiana, Kentucky were our first 2 states. We launched Indiana in March, Kentucky in April. And I couldn't, I was just trying to order as much as I could that we could afford. So I'd have to kind of wait to get paid, and then I'd go and I'd order more, which took time, and it was insane. So we were out of stock so much that first year, and I remember,
which is so cool, just building up pent up demand.
It was awesome, but then it was like the stress of like, oh my God, everybody was like, we were hearing the other side of it, which was you're always out of stock and everything. So we went to my distributor, and I was like, hey, I just got a crazy question for you. Like right now, if I had enough inventory, how many cases do you think you'd be, ordering, And he's like, right now, peak of summer, he's like 10,000. I'm like, and it made me
3 months
think
in.
of that. We're 3 months in, and I'm going, I wrote that number on my month number 24, if all hell broke loose. So it quickly got to that point. And so we were, by the end of that summer, Jill and I were like, hey, now we're noticing not all of our paychecks are going back into projection, because keep in mind, we're working full time, basically taking everything we have. Our savings is drained. We have a second mortgage on our home, and we keep putting it into this thing. But now it's like, instead of all of our paycheck, we got a little left over. We were seeing where there was a little bit of profit starting, and it was really hard to make a profit, especially early on. And so we were kind of content to say, maybe we just slow roll this thing. Let's just, Indiana, Kentucky, maybe we'll add another state, or maybe let's just keep doing it, funding it. And then we had John, and I had like several people in the alcohol world be like, you're an idiot if you do that. You get something that is super special. It's like lightning in a bottle, but in a can. And I think you should really go with this thing. And so when John had said that, like I'd already heard that in the industry. And then when John said that, he was like, and by the way, he's like, if you want to help, I'm in. He's like, he's an ops guy. I am very right brain. I'm creative. I'm not the most organized person. My wife, and that's why we make a great couple. She keeps me in line. I'm just very creative. I love innovating, creativity, ideas, stuff like that. So I was like, well, he's telling me this. He's telling me he's in. Jill and I, we had a long talk about it. I'm like, I don't know. Do we want to give up equity this early? But then we're like, but at the same time, like we don't have the financial means and we don't have the resources or the know-how, and again, it goes back to, want to surround yourself with the best people, right? I'm always like, if I'm the smartest guy in the room, we got a problem. I want to be, I'd rather have a company where I'm the dumbest guy in the room. I just surround myself with people that are better. I think that's, a key to success, but we finally said, all right, let's go. And so John, this was August and September of that same year. This was only like 5-6 months later.
Good night.
And John was like, hey, we got a lot of work to do. He's like, if you guys should probably consider quitting your jobs at some point. I think within like a month and a half, we both had quit our jobs. And John was like, oh, you both did right away. And we're like, hey.
It's like maybe you rolled this out a little slow. Maybe one of you first.
We took it to heart, which ended up working out because, again, it goes back to what you just mentioned. Now all our eggs are kind of in the basket and we have to succeed. There's no, are you going to? So that was really the first big catalyst. The first, I would call it the big major risk that we were like, okay, well, we're quitting our jobs at this point. And Jill kind of jokingly was like, who's going to pay us? I'm like, yeah, that's the point. This is going to be interesting. So, and by the end of that year, we had sold around 38,000 cases just in Indiana, Kentucky, which again was like, I didn't think we'd sell 1,000 cases. We were thinking very small time when we were doing this. It was almost like, well, we'll make this so that Jill doesn't have to always be making these darn things because it's a pain. If we get it in our local shelves, we were going to be pretty stoked about that. So
That's funny. Gosh, yeah, there's so much to unpack there. I think I think your story of risk is so cool. I love how you just described it from early on of just strategic risk of one by one. And I had a guy on, Todd Earwood, is a Norton Commons guy. He's awesome. And he said a few episodes back, if your first product you roll out, as you look back on it, if you're not embarrassed by your first product, you waited too long.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that there's been a big shift in your product since you first started? Or I know, obviously, I want to get to marketing. Your whole marketing is incredible. I see the shirt you're wearing now.
Thanks.
But do you feel like there's been a big shift drink-wise itself, or has that remained the exact same and the shift has been more just in marketing and changes?
Yeah, I would say a marketing shift. The drink has actually stayed very... it's basically, we've not changed anything. Vodkas here and there just from contracts and pricing and, finding better here or there, logistics, but the drink itself is the same. I think we're getting better potentially at flavor development. But that's also probably in the eye of the beholder because we got some people are like, my favorite one is like Linda from the first pack.
Okay, break down the names thing because I heard this story and it's so interesting how you got started on you. If you look at his shirt, if you're watching it, you can see all the Julie and Linda and Mary and all the different names on the cans. Nancy. So
we joke, Jill's the inside of our cans. I'm the outside. So again, going back to a creative brain, I love just thinking up stuff. Sometimes kind of wild. And I remember when we were talking about this mom water concept. I told Jill, I'm like, I can kind of see it. Like, and I feel like we would want to do something to where if it's really about moms and not just some generic, making fun or this, I'm like, our can should have personality. And the best way to have more personality in your product would be like, let's attach a name to it. I remember at one point thinking, okay, can you do it like Coke where there's just random names on every one?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work that way in the alcohol world because your name on the can is you have to get them approved by the TTB every time you do any label change. Like, I
remember at Thornton's in like 2010 going through looking for the Sam cans of Coke.
Exactly. I'm like, that would have been great, but logistically can't happen. So we were like, well, I think that's okay. Like, what if each flavor has a name associated with it? And then if you look close on our cans, we have 3 little descriptive words, kind of like personality traits. Thought we can kind of craft these fun personalities in our cans and our flavors. And at the time, I remember pitching it to a couple people thinking this could go both ways. This could be like a really cool idea, or people would look at it like really corny, generic, or trying to poke fun or something. And luckily, it's the former, not the latter. It ended up being one of the things that sets us apart the most of any other alcohol brand. We had somebody really early on in the alcohol world say, you guys, we've never really seen this. You guys have created a brand within a brand. You've got the Linda and the Susan and the Nancy and the Karen and like all these flavors.
Is there a Karen one?
There's a Karen. and if you remember,
what's the Karen one? Is this before Karens became popular?
Yes. Remember when we did it, January 2020, and the Karen meme happened during COVID, right? And we remember that happened, and we're like, oh no, like, is this going to be?
Then it probably spiked.
It did. Like it was funny because we didn't want to be like necessarily riding this generic wave of like, hey, we wanted to be very authentic the whole time. Genuine, authentic was kind of our thing. But we're like, we had no money left at this point. We're like, we'd already had the names, the labels, they were approved. We're like, well, we're rolling with it. We'll just try to be nice to Karens because they'd had a bit of a rough go.
It's been a rough year for Karen.
Geez. And, because of one lady, anyone named Karen, they had a rough one. So we tried it. We actually had people emailing in like, thanks for not playing up the Karen thing and being nice and whatever. So the names ended up being kind of our thing, and the distributors loved it. And what's really cool is when you go to a bar, you go someplace right now and you order them, no one says, give me the strawberry kiwi.
Yeah.
They're like, give me a Susan. And it's the coolest, like most fun thing is that there are people, being like, Susan's my girl. And it's become a whole thing. And that's kind of what we were hoping it would happen. But there's no guarantees when that happens. So no, the first names were random. Like Linda was from a YouTube video where this kid is pleading with his mom. Listen, Linda.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's where that name came from. We're like, it's a great mom moment. That should be one.
Linda. Yeah.
So we just kind of randomly, there was no real meaning behind them. We just tried to pick very popular generic mom names, and because again, we're thinking pretty small scale. I'm not thinking this is some big, going to be a big thing. And then as we went, so then the second pack came out last year called Vacation Mode, and we put our moms on there.
Oh, that's cool.
Like Kathy is my mom, Jill's mom is Louise. We have John's mom, Mary, and then Bobby Joe's mom is Carol, which is our seasonal that'll be coming out here shortly.
That's so cool.
So we did put a touch on it, like a personal, because again, we tried to. Like if there's all of these big celebrity brands, that's a thing now, right? You got The Rock and all these people are associated with an alcohol brand. They all want to be involved. We're like, let's maybe try to be the alcohol brand for the people. Like we're just normal people. We're very, very normal, middle America, middle class type, feel. And like, we want to maintain those values as we go through, we don't want to, sell our soul and do things that we shouldn't. Like that's just the way we are. So let's kind of lower that veil and let's make our employees and our people kind of the star of who we are instead of a celebrity. So we've just kind of rolled with that. And, we like being the underdog, scrappy, those kind of things, especially on the dad water side. So
that's so cool. Yeah. And I saw a ad the other day or a video. You guys are currently taking recommendations for the next to name another flavor after somebody. Is that correct?
So we do. So we decided this time, we're like, our fans are the best. Like, and I'm sure every alcohol brand probably says that or whatever, but legitimately our fans they're the best. And I think part of that is because, if you think about in the marketplace, there's not a lot of brands that are focused on women that market to women and we had a lot of feedback. They were like, we feel like this is like our brand, like they took almost like ownership in it because it felt like we're represented in the marketplace. So, it's just kind of wild. I guess you go, and I forgot what was your question?
I was just saying like the name that they're doing that I saw a video. They're saying like, hey, you can submit a name, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we
naming
decided
rights to the next can.
So we did the Nancy and Susan from the last pack. They were not our mom's names, right? They were voted on by our community. We're like, okay, well, cool. Let's see what they're thinking. And those were the two most popular ones. So this time we took it a step further and said, we have the best fans. Let's do a contest. You could nominate your name. Why should it be on a can? Who's the biggest fan, if you will? And we had just amazing videos. And we did pick one that we'll be unveiling in first quarter of next year.
Oh, that's awesome.
But she actually nominated her mom. And it was such a cool video. And we had it was really hard to choose from because we had really, really, really good entries. So there will be a can named after one of our fans next year that will be making an appearance.
That's pretty cool.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah.
I just love, and I've hit on this on a previous episode, somebody I had that was, they were a social media influencer, and it was like, they felt like the biggest success for them was when they stopped trying to portray that they were this successful, put together person like everybody else. And when they broke down and just, hey, this is me. I might not be all put together all the time. Here's the pros and cons of my life. Now, obviously it's a little different when you're building a brand like you guys, but in the way that it is just from the 20 minutes we've sat down so far, just the grassroots building up of, like you said, middle America, people feel like they almost, even though they don't have ownership in the company, it's like everybody wants to be a part of something that's not like, okay, it's Snoop Dogg's thing. Yeah, let's make Snoop Dogg a couple more $1 million and buy his wine. It's like, man, this is something that like I'm a part of. Everybody wants to be in on the music artist when they're on their first tour in the little tiny venue and everyone's posting the videos of Morgan Wallen's first concert and they're like, I was there. It's like everybody wants to be on the ground floor of something. And I think it's an encouragement to everybody who's building something that, you know, when you go to build something that's a business down the road, you sit there and it's like, you'll find the people. And I think I'd love to ask you this question. I'll just word it as a question instead of rambling. But were there just people that you looked back on, you go, man, they jumped in and helped us out so much in the beginning, or they believed in me when I didn't feel like they should have believed in me? Was that a surprise to you? Were those people in your life?
Yeah. I mean, John was probably the first one, right? Because here was a successful friend and businessman that like had gotten to the point to where he's in his, mid 50s and able to kind of semi-retire. And like, I'm like, that's someone I respect immensely. And when he had that belief, right? And at the same time, we had a call with a major liquor store chain, and the guy that like heads up all of their, marketing, things like that. And, he was just like, he's like, hell, I'd work for you. He's like, if I was running your company, he's like, I'd quit my job tomorrow. Like, that's how much he believed in the product.
Did you hire him?
No,
Oh.
We didn't, because we were like so early. We were like, we didn't know, we couldn't afford.
Like, hey, we're not paying ourselves.
Yeah,
yet,
like
so it's not that lucrative of a position.
Jill and I paid ourselves. We made half for over, like I'd say, close to 2 years. We made half of what we did prior, because we were like, we've got to put all this money in. How can we get by? You even had to take out a personal loan, like from John.
It was a good time to take out personal loans. And,
it was.
And
it was just
double
like
second mortgages. It's like 2.5%. You're like, man, I wish I would have.
All the SBA loans, like they worked out pretty well. But so, and even to this day, like we've not taken a distribution. Like we're in year 4 or 5. Like we've put everything back into our employees, everything back into the company. And we've told them, like, we'll have good years and bad years. Good years where if we're profitable, we want to be able to share in that with our crew and our employees. And there might be years where we're not, and it's a growth year, or it's maybe the alcohol industry does something, and in those years, you might have to share in a little bit of our pain. But that's the ups and downs. We really wanted to have a team that was focused on the company and not because I came from sales, and when you're in sales, you usually have tunnel vision. It's like, what is my quota? What is my goal? And I don't really care about the profitability of the company.
Yeah, of course.
If they can pay me, I'm out here to earn money. So we wanted to try to avoid that. I'm like, in sales, I would love it if I was cheering on my buddy just as much as I'm competing with them. When he wins, I win, and so on and so forth. So we try to develop a culture around that with Mom Water. And again, it's authenticity. We're unabashedly ourselves. I will be the first person to tell you, like, I am not the most put together person. I am not, reading books all the time on success and self-help, and that's not me. Like, I get super bored with that stuff. You got to think, like, my brain just doesn't necessarily always work that way. But I think that's also a testament to, like, you don't have to be a certain kind of personality type always to succeed. I've learned to work my way around it, which is also why, like, so when we hired, going back to, like John was that trust, and you had outside people. And then like the next big level was like, we had my sister be like, I'd be interested. And she didn't even drink. Like, she's, ordained minister on her pastime, but she managed a medical practice for some local doctors. And when she said that, I was like, oh, wow. And then Jill's brother, Adam, was like, if you guys get a job, like, I'm in. Like, they started to see a little bit of this and be like, we might have a chance to kind of like, A, help family, B, get into a job that's a little more free. Like, one was a banker, one was then my brother was like, I'd be interested. And he was in banking and finance. And like, John's son was like, and he, worked at John's other company, was like, so we started seeing all this stuff, right?
How many staff you guys have now?
So we have 41.
Wow.
My son is actually our 41st employee, just got out of college and came to work for us. So yeah, we went from, it's been a whirlwind in the last few years. Went from, I think my sister was our first hire, and it was almost like this kind of part-time. She had to still help this practice a little bit, this transition. She was HR background, so we kind of knew all the office stuff. I legitimately was doing our QuickBooks at the time, and it looked like a kindergartner got a hold of QuickBooks. It was ridiculous. It was probably, if that still existed and an accountant looked at it, would probably be the most embarrassing thing I ever did.
I thought you were going to say you'd be in prison.
No, I think I did everything. I report it. Just nothing's in the right category. I am ignorant when it came to accounting. I just didn't understand it. So my sister had to inherit that mess and actually turn it around and get it where it worked. So, we went through all that hiring, Sloan and Brooke, and we hired, social media was one of our first big ones, because we looked at social media and went, okay, I wasn't a big social media person, but I'm like, this is probably the most cost-effective way that we can grow, is to be seen via social media. Can't afford to put a commercial on TV. Can't afford to do a lot of that stuff. So we hired our own social media. Some people outsource it. We wanted to own that. If we're going to create a lifestyle and a brand and all this stuff that's meaningful, we need to have that in-house. And so they were some of our first employees, and then we just kind of got rocking and rolling. So, at this point, we've got my sister as our CEO. My brother's a regional vice president. John's son is a regional vice president. Jill's brother, my brother-in-law, Adam, is our COO. We are very much a local family and friends based company. And I think we had a lot of people be like, don't do business with family. I get that. I think our family was a little different. I think we weren't always money hungry. And I think that sometimes is where the crux of all the issues are. We're all very try to be very humble and I'll be the first to raise my hand when I'm wrong. So we don't have big egos. And so I think that really worked. And what ended up happening, I think it brought our family closer. I didn't, always interact or hang out with my sister. We had different friend groups and, in different areas, and now get to all the time. And I think what it did was it fostered a culture of family within Mom Water, because now everyone that's in, we say, welcome to the Mom Water family. We're we want to get to know your spouses. The spouses are always coming, so everybody really knows us. And we have half of our employees, their spouses are, going to a country music fest and helping them work it on a weekend or something.
So cool.
It's really, really cool. And we've not lost a single employee since we started.
Wow.
We have the same folks that started with us. We have never, and eventually I'm sure it'll happen. And it might be, we have to initiate it. It might be somebody just, finds a better opportunity, and I'm glad we could be a part of maybe helping you find that. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to provide for your family and friends. So
I love that you hit on the social media point, and it's because that's the sole way that I've built my whole entire business. And I see so many people, and I'm a little bit different than you. I listen to business podcasts and books all day long. It's just my favorite thing. I literally sit in there. If you're going to listen to one, Alex Hormozi, have you heard of Alex Hormozi? He has a new one that just came out. It was the #1 bestseller of all time. In the first week, passed up Prince Harry's book. Wow. And he doubled it in week 1. It's crazy. But the thing I was getting to was, he says something that is, if you're building a business and you choose to not post on social media, every day you choose not to post on social media good content, you're literally saying, I don't want to play a free lottery ticket today. He's like, that is the choice every time you wake up and you go to sleep and you didn't post on social media that day, good content, you're saying, I didn't want to play the lottery today and someone's handing me a free ticket. And it's from a business that I started where I did not have the marketing budget in the exact same way to all of these big brokerages that are just throwing money at sponsoring massive stadiums or getting billboards and all these things or commercials. I was like, I don't have that, but I can make good content that the algorithm will push to people for free. Yep. And I can get 100,000 views on a good video for 100% free versus spending, $10,000 to get 100,000 eyeballs on it, which I did not have that capital. And so it's fun to see a business like you guys. Obviously, you guys have blown up. And how many states are you in now?
We're in, I think, 40 now. Kind of lost track of it. We had a couple state-based, because control states where the state government is actually who controls when liquor comes in and it's sold in their stores. Alabama was the one, and Pennsylvania just launched as well. I think we just announced that like last week. And honestly, like the last 10, like we'll kind of slow roll into them. Like we want to get a handle on the states we're in because, it's not always you open a state and it's a lot of expenses, and we want to make sure we're growing. We have so much room for growth in the states that we're in already. Like we want to get our market share up. And
what stores are you in? Kroger, like
the biggest ones
stores?
would be like your Kroger, Kroger, Meyer around here. Again, in Kentucky, I don't think we can be in liquor. Every state's different. So like, since we're a liquor, you got to be in a liquor store. I can tell you there's not a lot of
you can't
groceries.
be in Kroger like in the
right,
because what percent?
Indiana,
what percent are you?
We are 4.5%, and then we're 5%. But since we're liquor based,
5%.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So since we're liquor based, they consider us a liquor. And some stores might have a liquor license, but most of them have beer and wine. So like White Claw is fine; it's a malt, it's a beer. Indiana, we're Kroger, Meyer, it's fine. So every state's a little different, but our biggest national chains, we're in Walmart pretty much nationally. Target, Total Wine and More, Publix in Florida. We're in every location in Publix.
Wow.
I mean, it has gotten kind of crazy. Like all of these major, and even like Target, like we meet with their buyer and we'll present like innovations and be like, what do you think? And the whole team will never forget the first time that we got Target kind of either reached out.
Was that your first big one?
Target was the first like one that I think made everybody kind of look around and pinch themselves a little bit. Because we'd always said, we're like, our product looks like it was made for Target. And we literally had the buyer go, your product was made for our stores. And we're like, yes, it's moms. I mean, that's their core audience. And, unfortunately, unfortunately, like one of the downsides of being a spirit-based canned cocktail, right? Because there's a lot of people don't realize there's two different ones. Like a lot of like Buzz Balls and, some of the like White Claws and all those, they're either using a wine base, like an orange wine base, like for Buzz Balls, or a malt, which means they're not going through the distillation process. It's a beer. It's a flavored beer in essence. If you go through the distillation process, just one extra process, same thing, could be the same ABV. We're 4.5%. White Claw 4.5%. They're a malt. We're a liquor. We probably pay like 10x on the taxes. Federally, we pay $2.75 a case. Federally, White Claw pays 55 cents a case.
No
Every
way.
state is the same way. So when you go to a store and you're like, why is Mom Water so expensive? Why is High Noon so expensive versus White Claw versus Busch Light? We're like, because we pay way more taxes. Like we can't afford to do it, which is crazy because like you have two drinks that are 5%. They're going to mess you up the same. Like there's no difference. So there's a lot of those things that the consumer doesn't know that we didn't know. Even starting the company, we had no idea. There's just a lot of weirdness like that in the alcohol world. So
somebody explained that to me bourbon wise. They were like, literally every year that it sits on the shelf, it loses half the actual bourbon in the barrel. And they're not on the shelf, in the barrel. And then on top of it, you get taxed per every year it sits there. Yes. So like that's why a 30-year bottle is crazy expensive. It's not that expensive. They're not making that much more on it. It's literally just the taxes that they're having to pay to let it sit there for 30 years.
And that's why you'll almost never see a 15 or let's say a 20-year plus bourbon that's going to be barrel strength. They're always going to cut it because at that point in time, they've only got a few gallons left. They need more to sell and make money. So that's why you'll see old scotches. They're always stored in like cooled places. So you're not getting all of the evaporation. So they have more. So you'll see older scotches like 30, 40 years old. There's just more left in the barrel because they're not like, that's why Kentucky like is such a great place for it. It's really hot and then really cold, and it's all the temperature changes and fluctuations that like, not that I know bourbon or anything, but like,
you're in a club.
Been in it for a while. Yeah. It's like every time you burn the barrel and that liquid passes through that burnt part of the barrel, it's expanding and contracting.
Somebody explained to me one time how they came up with double oaked, and now they charge double for it. And it's, it's literally because the barrel messed up and they had to put it in a different barrel. I was like, that's marketing genius right there.
And I think sometimes it's like, we're a good example of that. Just taking cues from around, like paying attention to your surroundings and what's happening around you. Like that was the whole thing with Mom Water. We were like, just kind of like doesn't exist in the market. And thankfully Jill realized that because she just didn't want to make them anymore. She's like, got to buy water bottles. I got to write on all of them. I got to pour them out. She's like, it's a pain in the butt. She's like, I would just buy it if it was at the shelf. And so then we were like, well, we're banking on that there's more people like you out there. And the crazy thing with us is we're going through this in year 1, 2, and we're thinking, okay, the mom, the target shopper, but it's going to be like, right, most females between the age of like, whatever, we'll say 30 and 50, right? The moms, whatever. And turns out it's like the younger generation is one of our top demographics. So legal college age drinking, girls, guys, we started looking at all of our states. And the one thing we noticed is it's the hardest account to get into would be an on-premise, which would be like a bar, place that you're going to walk in, order one and drink it there. We started looking at the places we were having success and we're like, oh, it's Athens, Ohio. Yeah. Weird. What's in Athens? Like, oh, Ohio University. Like what's in, Oxford, Ohio? Oh, that's Miami University. What's in Athens, Georgia, or Oxford, Mississippi? Like we started going through they were all college towns. Like, really? College kids and, drinking mom water? It's huge. It's become one of our biggest, and honestly, I think kind of coolest things is that here's this crazy product called mom water that we will talk. We just did an activation at Indiana University last Thursday at a bar called the Upstairs Pub that we're kind of in and partnering with this year. And we did a activation that almost everybody at the bar was like, this could be the best activation we've ever done. And all it was we had co-branded postcards and we put them on tables. We said, here's the deal, students, you come in, write a postcard to your parents or whoever, and we will postmark it for you and we will send it. And because the connections that we are making between kids and their parents is wild. We'll have a lot of kids that are like, my mom drinks this all the time. She introduced it to me, or more oftentimes than not, it's the other way around.
It's calling their mom.
We will talk to a parent and they're like, my daughter brought this home from school and I love it. Like it's this cool kind of bridge of like, you got the kids that are of age and they're drinking, like, and then you've got the parents and they can both enjoy it, but they both enjoy it for a fun, different way.
Yeah.
For a reason, I should say. So, so we're like the young generation, they care about what they're putting in their body more than we did.
Well, we were talking about that right beforehand was you were just saying you came into a market that drinking is down.
Yep.
Health is so important post-COVID. So many more people were worried about it. And I told you, I'm like, if I have 2 beers, I feel like somebody took a helium injection into my stomach and I swell up. And so it's like, there's so many more people who think that way when they do want to go hang out with some friends or sit by a pool. And it's like, okay, I don't feel horrible the next day, which entered in a perfect time for you to come in and enter in something that's, hey, this is as clean as it gets when it comes to alcohol.
I mean, and we're the cleanest thing in a can in the alcohol world. Like you can be as clean as us, but all of our calories come from just the alcohol content, right? Except for one comes from the citric acid. So that's our only, and that I know of, we're also the only alcohol company that puts all of our ingredients on the can. So they'll have a serving facts, right? Oh, here's how much, there's no sodium, here's how many calories, there's no sugar. We literally put our ingredients, which is 4 things. We have natural fruit flavor, water, vodka, and citric acid. Like that's all that's in mom water. Dad water, it's tequila instead of vodka. But we're like, again, we go back to transparency, being authentic, everything else. We're like, we're going to put it on the can. Anything that we do, even if we have to use an ingredient that we're like, maybe we don't want to use, but we have to, and we're going to do whatever, we're going to put it on the can. Like we think that should be a trend that everyone should do. Like everyone wants to know what the heck they're drinking. Like it's never a bad thing, but most of the companies, especially in the alcohol world, it's really a lot of smoke and mirrors. Be like, hey, we use, they'll say natural flavors, but they use artificial sweetener. Or, you know what I mean? Like, so you're trying to pick and choose the things that sound really good, but you're just not telling them maybe what all's in it. We're the opposite. We're like, we're going to put it right there. You can read it, put it on there. You know, if it's something we're not going to drink, we're not going to put it in a can. Like if it's something that, that has to pass the smell test of, Jill and I, like we still develop this, like we don't do big expensive tasting panels. It's like friends in our company. And then we'll take some samples and we'll go to our friends or some of the original ones and go, what do you think? Like we try to gather feedback that way. Maybe it's not the best way of doing it, but for us, it's definitely who we are. We just want to continue to do that. And, in a time where you kind of alluded to it, the alcohol industry is in flux. I mean, if you talk to almost any brand right now, there's a few that are just like maybe immune to it because they ride in the wave, especially in the RTD space. The alcohol world in general it's crazy. Like I've heard several people been in the industry forever. Like it's not been this wild since like Prohibition. And there's a bunch of reasons, and everybody's trying to figure it out. All these major companies, billion-dollar companies, are not immune to it. I mean, their beer is down, wine is down, spirits are down.
Legitimately, mom water is up.
This year we might be flat. I don't know. Like even we got caught in the craziness this year. But like, what is nuts is that these companies that have been around forever and they have unlimited resources virtually, they still can't figure it out. And really it comes down to a bunch of different factors all at once, right? Coming out of COVID, everybody's like a little bit more invested in their health. Drinking being a trend, like dry January, that wasn't a thing years ago. Now it is. And you have Ozempic, right? You have these new medications that side effect is you're not eating and drinking as much. You have THC entering the market, right? In a lot of states, or Delta 9, all the ones like in all states, really, those THC, and they're in drinkable form. Some people, that's their thing, and that's what they're going to. So you've got all of these factors just kind of hitting at once. And so the pie, I always say the alcohol world, like the consumer pie is shrinking. You know, it's not the same size and you're just fighting for a piece. You're still fighting for a piece and the pie's getting slowly a little bit smaller. So it is definitely a weird time. But again, for us, we're just going to be ourselves. We're super quirky. It comes off probably in the marketing sometimes. Like we do, I think all credit to our social girls and our entire marketing department on Mom Water, and then get guys on the Dad Water of like, our marketing is, I think, our lifestyle of our brand. Like I think we've really done a good job of developing that lifestyle. And really some of the developing wasn't developing, it was more nurturing. It was like our fans and the audience were almost the ones that were doing a lot of the developing. And we were just taking cues. Like, that's pretty cool. You know, like we're seeing this and that and this and that. And, you know, we like pastel colors and things like that. They didn't exist whenever we started the project. Now you're starting to see a little more that'll use different color schemes. We're just like, we just want to be different. We love being different. Now, with that, I would argue that we probably have the toughest task of marketing because Mom Water isn't just a new product. It's a new category of alcohol. So if you walk into a bar, you're like, all right, how many beers you have? You have beers, you have ciders, right? You have teas, lemonades, seltzers, right? These are all things. If I told you what they were, you'd be like, oh yeah, you have a reference point for a tea or lemonade. You're just going to taste it and go, okay, do I like this one or this one better? If I'm like, we're a spirit water, you'd be like,
it's the only non-carbonated, right? One of the only non-carbonated.
Carbonated. There's a lot
carbureted, sorry.
There's a lot of non-carbonateds now. Surfside, all the teas and lemonades, right? Yeah. But they're all sweet. We're the only, and we were one of the first non-carbonated, right? Because everybody's on the carbonation. Now the trend is like, okay, now people are going towards the non-carbonated stuff, but there's still the 99.9% of all of them, other than Mom Water and Dad Water, they're sweet. So if you got to think of like a dry wine versus a sweet wine, right? It's a certain palate. And some people start on sweet wine. They eventually make it their palate makes their way to dry wine. I know of a lot of people that did that, right? They start at sweet wine, they end up at dry. Name one person that you know that started at dry or went from sweet to dry and went back.
Yeah, that's fine.
It doesn't happen, right? You get to a point to where your palate now is like, I don't want all that sugar. It's almost affecting other things. We're kind of that in the alcohol world, which means trial, education. If I tell you what to expect before you pop open a can of Mom Water, you'll probably 90% chance you're probably going to like it in some form. It may not be your thing, but you're like, oh, I get it. If you buy it off the shelf and you have no idea what it is, even reading the packaging, people don't really read it too close. Pop it open, like it's flat.
Yeah.
Where's all the flavor? It's light. We're like, no, that's the point. If you think about why people drink a light beer, I ask my buddies this all the time, like, why do you drink a light beer? It's not because you like flavor.
Yeah.
Like if you like flavor, you can drink more of them. IPAs. It's because you could drink a lot of them, right? They don't fill you up as bad as the other ones, and that's literally, we're trying to make dad water into an alternative for a lot of beer drinkers. Yes, it's tequila. I got a lot of beer drinking buddies that don't like tequila, but they love dad water. And they're like, yeah, because I can drink them and they don't fill me up, and they're light flavor, just like my beer, just in a different non-carbonated way. So
it's the way you described it, as if, you know what I mean? Like, I love tea and I love like Coke, and it's like, okay, I try to drink as few as I can, but if I'm expecting a Coke and then it's an unsweet tea, I'll drink an unsweet tea anytime, but it's like, if I'm expecting a Coke and I go get an unsweet tea, I'm like, oh, that was horrible.
Yes.
Or the McDonald's hands you the wrong drink. You're like, oh man. But I see what you mean. If you don't understand what you're getting into, and you're expecting a high noon taste, and you get something completely different than that.
That's where we've told people, like, the closest thing would be, we're a high noon that you stripped all the carbonation out, because high noon's not super sweet. It's more of a dry seltzer.
Yeah.
There's some sweet seltzers on the market that are a lot sweeter. But that's really probably the closest thing of trying to tell somebody. But again, even when we're like, it's water, and then they'll take a swig at like a tasting or a country music festival, like, there's no carbonation. I'm like, yeah, said it was like water.
It
still didn't register. Like, we put no carbonation. Because again, there's no reference point. No one is used to having anything flat in a can, especially water. Canned water is a relatively new thing, which I'm assuming probably has, like nitro dosing. You have to, when we can our product, CO2, which is most carbonation, is what actually pressurizes your can. So you don't have to do anything to it. That's why the can doesn't get real squishy, right? CO2 is in there pressurizing it. Well, when you don't have CO2, how do you pressurize your can? So canned water companies, everything else, like your can will just get squishy.
Yeah.
There's still the same amount of liquid in there, but you can press in on the can. Well, you have to use nitrogen. So they have these big nitrogen dosing machines that just shoots, because it doesn't affect your profile. It doesn't do anything to flavor. It's just there for pressure. So just a small shot of nitrogen right before it gets canned, and that's what keeps it. That's a lot of canning lines did not have that technology 5, 6, 7 years ago. Even when we were doing, like, trying to find one, you had to find somebody that had a nitro doser, and it wasn't the easiest thing in the world to do. Now you can find it about everywhere, because non-carbonated products, I think, are leading like 50% of the growth in our industry, like in the canned drinks. And like, people are looking for the non-carbonated because bloat, everything else. Like, there's still a whole segment. They're like, I need my carbonation, and I totally get it. Every once in a while, I need a little bit. But especially if you're drinking, any kind of quantity, people are tending to gravitate towards the non-carbonated. Now, we're hoping that the next step is, okay, now that we're into these non-carbonated, I'd like to drink maybe more, or I don't want my taste buds to just be on overload, and I've got this artificial flavor left on my tongue. That's where we come in, is like, no, we are light and drinkable, and you can session a bunch of them and not feel terrible. And like, it doesn't mess with your palate. Like, if you want to drink one with a meal, it's like drinking lemon water.
Yeah.
Right? So very, very different, but it takes time, patience, education, and a lot of money to do that. We have to do a lot of sampling. Everybody has to do samplings, don't get me wrong. But like, if we do a sampling and we hire an agency and they don't really know how to sell our product or to prepare people, that sampling might not be the greatest, right? If we're there doing it, we're good, because I can let people know what to expect before they pop open their first mom or dad water. So
that's so cool. Okay, I want to wrap up, because I want to respect your time. Thank you for all of this. One encouragement. What would your biggest encouragement be to yourself 5 years ago, a young entrepreneur who's saying, "Man, I have this idea for something, whether it be an invention or a space in the market, they want to start something." What would your biggest encouragement be, or piece of advice for somebody pre-risk?
Yep. Put your ego aside and just be a sponge. Like, I think that's why I am always agreeing to meet with people that'll, like, even though they might be competition, like, hey, I got an alcohol, I want to develop this product and blah, 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 blah. I'll sit down with them, because so many people did that for me. I remember I listened to your podcast with Eric, and, great dude, shout out Eric, but he had mentioned something similar. Like, he was like, when I get in the league, like, people help me, even though, and when people are coming into the league,
even though you're fighting for their spot,
your spot, like, it's competition, but at the same time, like, that's the only way that we really got there. Is like, I would talk to a, Flavorman, and I'd be like, I have no, like, who do I find and to make this? And they give me a list, and then I'd find someone, and they're like, well, we can't, but I know. And then all of a sudden you have this breadcrumb trail, and finally, I found a company that can make our product. But it was like, had to go through all of this, like is networking. I still think networking is one of the biggest things. And so that would be a big one to me, is like, just no ego. Don't act like you know everything. We literally went into distributor meetings saying we know nothing. We are not from the industry. We will listen to you. And if you give us advice, we're probably going to take it. And a lot of them had the same response. They're like, this is a breath of fresh air. Like, we usually are used to these large companies that come in and go, this is what you're going to do. And we know more. And we're like, you guys know the market. You guys know the industry. So I think just being a little bit humble and no ego, and just be willing to learn, like soak it up. I think that's a big one.
That's so cool. Well, thank you for your time. I can't thank you enough. I'm excited to go try. I might not be right now. I have several meetings this afternoon, but I'm excited to go try my first mom/dad water. So I will, awesome. I will have one this week, and thank you for your time. It was fun. We'll have to get on the golf course sometime.
Absolutely. When I can get back to playing. Back surgery.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for your time.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Sam.